and you're going to really enjoy this. It's Anshuli. Come on down. Shrivastava. Shrivastava. As a faculty member at the Computer Science Department at Rice University. His broad research interests include AI and machine learning. In 2018, Science News named him one of the top 10 scientists under the age of 40. I think that's worth a clap right there. He is a recipient of the National Science Foundation Career Award, a Young Investor Award from the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, and Machine Learning Research Award from Amazon. He has received multiple Best Paper Awards, including the one at NIPS 2014, the flagship conference in machine learning. His research has been featured by several popular presses, including the New York Times. He's been interviewed live on the Houston Matters radio show on 88.7 for his work on estimating the number of casualties in the Syrian war. He finished his PhD in computer science from Cornell University. Prior to this, he was a scientist at FICO Research in Bangalore. And he did his bachelor's with mathematics major from the Indian Institute of Technology. What country is that? Kharagpur, where he was a silver medalist. Ladies and gentlemen, Anshuli.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk with some really fun people about different things. So I'm going to talk about am I audible? Yes. Okay, great. So I want to go on the next slide. Let's see. Okay, awesome. This works. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. I'm going to focus most on what is different about this new, excitement in AI, and hopefully I'll also convince you that there's something different to the AI that we are seeing, which was different from the past versions of AIs. And then we'll look at some of the impact, and most of you are already aware if you're using Google, Alexa, Siri, and other things. You're already aware what AI can do differently, and how they can change decision making for that matter. Then I'll go show some statistics of how AI is being used across in businesses, and then I will try to see if I can help you with if you want to get started, what you should start focusing on. All right. So what is different about it, right? So I'm sure everybody knows about the self-driving cars, right? It's in the news, and there is a lot of talk around it. So let's take that as an example. And what do you want to use AI for? We want to use AI for automating decision making. We hope that it will make better, smarter, and efficient decisions for us. And so let's think about this example and start thinking about, okay, if I want to automate driving, how should I do it? And I will try to go in the mindset of 90s of how we'll do this, and then I will try to show you the difference that is in the current way of thinking about AIs. So again, to simplify the problem, let's just think about, I want to automate the process of changing the lane. Now, the reason why I chose driving as an example, because as you can see that there are decision making involved, there is uncertainty around as to how people around you drive and what situation you are in, and it's very much like business. And there is a reason why it's called driving your business. Okay? So let's think about this. I want to automate the process of changing the lane. So let's start with sort of what is known as rule-based automation. So let's think about some of the rules as to how I will teach somebody to, drive a car and change lanes. So this is a reasonable rule. If the lane is clear, go to the lane, otherwise wait. Right? And lane clear means there's nobody where I want to go, and if it's clear, I can go there. Seems like a reasonable rule, but on a second thought, maybe wait. If somebody is driving on that lane and is speeding up, then maybe I should wait again, because I may hit into him or her. Okay, that seems like a reasonable one, but wait again. I mean, if the lane is clear and nobody is speeding, somebody is not entering into that lane, but maybe the person in front may be braking, right? And you can see that there are actually a lot of things that I have to start thinking about. Is somebody behind me overtaking me? Right? Am I on a highway? What kind of speed I'm looking at? And sorts of things. And quickly you see that this is what happens, is you start with a simple problem and you end up with a rule base which just blows up as I start putting more and more things into it. And that has been the problem with the old AI and what is known as a rule-based automation or rule-based decision making. There are several problems with this approach. First, I'm trying to spoon feed a system about how I think the world works, right? And as you can see, there are a lot of problems with this. My thinking about how the world works may not be correct most of the time, right? The world works very different from what we think. The second thing is, I am spoon feeding a set of rules to a system, and therefore the system can never be as good as me or maybe smarter or efficient than me. And the third thing, which is subtle, is that the world does not even work like rules. For example, when I'm on a highway, when I drive, when I'm on a highway, my driving is very different from when I'm not on a highway. When I'm changing lanes, the notions of speeds are very different. I myself is on a high speed and others are on a high speed. That makes the situation completely different. Now you might argue that isn't that just another rule? I can add another rule that if I'm on a highway versus if I'm not on a highway. But then there are semi-highways. And in fact, if you think about driving, it's way more than the rules. And how about driving here? And I can tell you from my personal experience, you can drive here. I do drive. When I go to India, I still drive. And it's actually like this. And the way of thinking is completely different. And this is what the problem with, in general, rule-based automation is. And this is what has changed in modern AI, which is called the third wave of AI. Instead of trying to build a whole set of rules, and again, if you think about the process is like this. First, let me solve the problem in my mind of how I will automate the driving or changing the lane, and then feed the set of rules that comes out to a system. There are several things. The problem itself is not well defined. Because me driving in India versus me driving on roads here, it's a completely different thing. I cannot define like one thing which I want to solve. It all depends on a situation. And that has what was the bottleneck of 80s. So believe me, in 80s and 90s, systems used to argue in similar fashion and none of them worked. None of them worked satisfactorily, or to an extent which will excite everybody else. Now what has changed is that modern AI systems don't decide based on rules. They work like this. It's somebody sitting on your passenger seat and you driving for hours and hours and he's just observing you. He looks at outside, what is there, and maybe you are making a left or a right or braking or accelerating. He's just observing this, observing, and then deciding the rules based on what it observes. So, and again, it's not a rule. It's not a rule-based system. So there is an algorithm, there is a smart, what is known as the AI algorithm, let's call it deep learning, which is what is popular these days. And to this algorithm, you feed lots of illustration. Hours, hundreds of thousands of hours of human driving. And the illustration is simply what is situation out there and what was the decision taken. And then it comes up with its own system and mapping of state to action. State as in what is out there, and action is either I take a right, brake, accelerate, all those are actions. And that is basically what has changed. And if you think about it, I'm not trying to solve the problem in my mind, I'm just giving examples. It's like how you will teach a smart person. You will spoon feed to someone who you think is not as smart as you are. But if you know that there is a really smart person out there, let him just show what I'm doing and he'll figure out the right thing. And that is what has happened. That is what has changed. And in fact, this is what is going out there, is that there is one pipeline for all decision making. And you'll be surprised that it's the same algorithm that does machine translation on Google, that gives you automated response for your emails and also does automated driving. That's one algorithm, roughly one template for the algorithm. What has changed is the data. So for self-driving car, I will collect a lot of examples of situation actions, and feed that to this pipeline, and I'll get what I call as a model for driving. And next, when I see a situation, I just pass the situation to the model, and the model will give me the smart decision. And this is one generic pipeline that seems to work across multiple domains. So if you're thinking about, translating languages, my input would be a lot of examples of English, German, like millions of such examples, and I will feed it to roughly the same algorithm, and I'll get a model, and when I feed it an English sentence, I'll get an output of a German sentence. That's how Google translators work. That's also exactly how the self-driving cars, which we are seeing is making a lot of news, is working. And it's actually a departure. It's a philosophical departure. I'm not trying to teach something. I'm just doing my stuff and letting somebody observe what's going on. All right. So this is, like the third wave of AI. I was, like if you want, you can go on YouTube and look at some of the links of, cool videos of self-driving cars and how, how accurately and impressively they can drive in situations around them. Okay, so what has happened with this change? Again, like a very similar story for machine translation. Again, in 90s, scientists argued that if I want to do machine translation, let me first understand language, think about rules, and then do the translation. Those systems never worked. What is working and what seemed like more impressive one, and that is what is being used by Alexa, Siri, and Google, is that you take millions of examples of text and their corresponding translation from the web. So it's not that I am asking somebody to curate this data for you. It's all out there. I take a document with English language and its corresponding translation in German, and I can accumulate a lot of such documents from web, and I feed it to this pipeline, and magically I observe that it's doing way better than what I could do using a rule-based solvers. Now, I'm talking about decision making with AI, and you might think, okay, there must be something, right? I mean, what kind of decisions I can make? It cannot be like that you can make like all sorts of decisions with AI. I mean, you're right, you cannot do all sorts of decisions with AI, but I think the boundary is much better, or much towards, much better than what you think. And the reason is this, I mean, how many of you know, how many of you think that AI can solve poker, right? And actually that has been done. So this is what happened. I mean, and again, it's about the belief, right? So the old belief was that, AI, it's computers, right? So they can do a lot of calculations and maybe they can do chess, right? I mean, I cannot compute everything, but maybe computers can. So chess is fine. But think about poker. In poker, I'm assuming everybody here knows poker, right? So in poker, I mean, there is some calculation involved, but the calculation is not something that humans cannot. So if you look at the expert players, once you get a card, you can actually very easily tell the odds without looking at other cards, what are the odds out there. And winning a poker is about learning each other's patterns, their bluffing patterns, and the system. And AI does exactly that. And in a much better way. In fact, they beat the best poker players in the world in a 12-day long poker game. And the way it went was, initially AI was losing a lot because it was trying to understand what is really the amount that might actually indicate that you're bluffing. When you bluff, you think that I'm trying to be as random as possible. Unfortunately, there is still a lot of patterns in it. And that is what AI can figure out. So, I mean, what I want to stress here is that we may think that AI can do simple decision making, but I think they can do a lot more complicated decision making. It's about it's about feeding them enough data, and they can actually even do things in hopeless situations. All right. So, I mean, we are talking about AI in business, and here are some of the statistics that you can find online. And what I want to show you is, of course, there's, there has been a lot of investment in AI in business. So, for example, the investment has gone up by 300%. The top one is, I think, is the statistics from February 2019, and the bottom one is from 2016. So, I mean, there is no doubt that it's going to improve customer experience. Automated assistants. For example, when you have Gmail these days, like you get answers in a box, right? If you have a small email, you might just use one of those answers. So this is kind of assisting you in doing your daily routine. And that is also one of the most used thing out there. I think this is the 27% of use of AI is in automation of manual and repetitive tasks. So, like you come across a lot of, similar kind of emails, or, like there was a ticket raised for a problem which has been, which occurs again and again, and we have kind of a solution already there for which AI is currently used a lot. A lot of people are using it for predictions. They are great at predictions. I mean, for example, stock predictions or something. I know what is going to happen to the market in the next few months, and you can get a very good estimate based on like the past trends, and that is what is currently being used. But increasingly, a lot of investment is there in recommendations, like increasing the quality of communication, and then monitoring alerts. And this will grow, right? Because like right now we are realizing some of the benefits, but I'll talk about it later. The AI is as good as your data, but if you start feeding it real quality data, you will start these numbers to even increase, which is probably what is going to happen in the near future. All right, so now comes to the main question. How can I get started? But I'll start with this, that you have to first start believing in AI. I mean, nothing will work until you don't believe it. So if you're like, okay, I want to try AI, maybe like give it 2-3 months and see if it generates something, it will never work. I can tell you from experience that, to make this work, even the big companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, they have dedicated teams who work for years on a particular problem, and it takes them years to make it work or improve it. So it takes a while. Now the good thing is, every business is different. So it does not mean that somebody else has solved the problem. He has solved a problem in his setting. Remember, every driver is different, right? Somebody drives in a different way, and like if somebody has automated his way of driving, doesn't mean that he will be better than you, because your problems are different. It's unique, and that's why AI for your business would be unique, because it is dependent on your data or your situation. So now the thing is that although I showed you a generic recipe, which was like this big data, take a lot of data, give it to models, or give it to a deep learning algorithm and get the models. Although this generic process is kind of same, but you have to tune it a lot for your needs. For example, the data, where is the data going to come from? The data is your data, right? And it's going to be very specialized. You have to spend a lot of efforts in curating this data, making this data useful. Then the model has to be fine-tuned on your situation. You are making profits or loss based on something which is very different from somebody else doing. Okay? But here's one thing. Once you start seeing the benefit of AI, once you start seeing like, oh, it's actually working, you will be surprised how good it is. And I can say that it's addictive. Many times you'll be surprised that as a human you would take this decision, and what this AI is recommending something that seems stupid, but then if you analyze it a while, you will realize, oh no, that's actually better. So these things do happen. Now, what should we start with? I think the foremost important thing is data. As you have seen in the whole pipeline, there was this data, then there was a generic algorithm, right? Which I won't focus more on, but data is the most important part of your AI. So if you want to start thinking about using AI in your business or in near future, start investing in this, data management, collection, and curation process. And it could be as simple as a well-formatted record of everything you can. So whatever is happening in your business, you're observing, profiting, loss, you're anyway going to document it. Start documenting it way more in a way that you can efficiently search and retrieve things. So in a well-formatted way. You can start with this. Once you build this base of data, things are easy later. Everything else is easy. So here's what I say, that data is the main goal. That's the key factor that will change your decision making. Rest, we know how to take care of. Rest would be like a process of trial and error that, that will go on in building models. But data is something that, that is unique to your business and is something which is most important about this AI process. And again, the quality of AI output is directly dependent on the quality of data. And here is the thing. I have the data. Okay, so let's say that I am in a stage where I have collected a reasonable amount of data, and I think all the variations that I'm looking for is there in the data. And of course, don't stop the process of collecting data. I'm still collecting more, but what can I do? So remember this pipeline. I have data, I have deep learning, I create a model, and then I test that model. And all you have to do after this is this loop, one of the most powerful methods in the history of humankind, trial and error. But you have to go over it. It's again like the recipe is generic, but you have to get it perfected for your scenario. And that requires tons of iteration. And here is a statement that I say is not at all overstated. Is the only reason that you won't beat Google is because it can do trial and error faster. So in a month, you will probably end up evaluating 20 models and figure out like, okay, this is a better for me. Google can do thousands. That's one of the reasons why Google is ahead in the curve. So the key takeaway is that the algorithm, the process is very generic. You have to trust in it, believe in it, and start doing your trial and error. And the faster and the expedite your process of doing this experimentation is, the more innovation you will have in your company, or at least in the decision-making process. And again, this is another lesson that you can learn from these big companies. Don't stop at success. If you find a model which is working well, don't stop there. Optimize it and keep looking for better, because there's always a better model. Because the world is going to change. You know, the models that you are going to have now is going to become obsolete like 5 months down the line or 5 years down the line, depending on what it is. So you have to constantly be in this loop of trial and error again and again, and always think about trying to find the next best model. And if you're doing all this, I think you'll be in a good shape. Now here comes the question, right? I mean, seems like, okay, there's this generic recipe, we have to do a lot of trial and error, and if everybody can do it, what makes me different? I mean, think about it. There are Google search, there are Amazon search, there's like Bing search, but people still use Google because they have lots and lots of data, unique data, and it's because they are using it. Like people will use it more and they get better, and that's true. So if so it's very much data dependent. So your data is a unique kind of thing for your business. Nobody has that. And if you have built models on this, you have a unique edge on anybody out there. And again, like the second part is also important. Like if you have been working on this process for, let's say, 2 to 3 years, you have optimized your pipelines, very specific pipelines to your, business and tasks. And that is something which people won't have. And it will take a while for somebody to catch it. So that's one of the reasons why everybody is investing a lot in AI, because they want this thing to get going. I think the investment is not because they think that it will immediately transform them. We know it's going to transform in the future. The process will take a while, but once I go there, it will take time for others to catch up, and by the time I'll make that big difference. All right, this is more or less what I had in mind, and I'll be happy to take questions, and hopefully, just to summarize, the quick point is this wave of AI is different. We are we are learning in a different way. It's not rule-based automation. It's already in use by many industries. They are seeing the early benefits of this technology. What I'll suggest is start investing in data collection and management, if not the AI algorithms, but at least the process of documenting and doing that. And again, like once you have that, it's all about efficiency of experimentation. That will drive how fast you make innovation. Thank you very much.
Questions? Yeah, I have a question. I'm Ariel Malik Sim with psychology. Spent many years in research at Shell, and we do a lot of this facial recognition technology, applying it to seismic. One of the questions, I have two questions. One of them is, so it's data-driven, right? The more data you have, your variables starts to decrease, right? At that point where your decision-making starts to make sense. At the early phase, when you have a variable, the error bar is big, then you kind of don't know what's going on. So first question, at what point in the data, with data coming in, that you already reached that point where error bar is very slow, and then we can literally trust AI. So it depends, I guess, on every problem, but at what point do you decide that you already reached that error bar is tiny enough that you can?
Yeah, so the question is like, I mean, I'm going to use AI and then I'll start seeing better and better accuracy. And what point should I start trusting AI? I think that's a very good question. Trust in AI in generally is something that is something that people are actually looking at because it's important. Right now, the use of AI is mostly assistance, and the reason is because that trust factor is something that we don't really have a very well-defined rule base as to how to handle things when there is a disaster. But I mean, for example, in your pipelines, right? I mean, first of all, if I'll say if the pipeline is not very risky, if the decision is not going to be catastrophic, right? Then you can actually trust AI most of the time because it's based on the statistics, right? When you deploy the model and test it, right, there will be an error bar, and generally what happens in companies is say that okay, my tolerance of error bar is 2%. So if I'm within 2%, I'm happy to start using. But if your tolerance is like 0,
then it's
I don't think you should use AI now. At least now is not the time.
Then how do you know if the data is a valid data or a garbage data? If it's just number, then I can punch in a lot of dirty data, and it will now be added to my statistics.
Right. I mean, so the question is, how do I know whether the data is a good data or a garbage data? That's also a very good question. The problem here is, I mean, you are testing, right? You're testing the model on something, and your test environment should be different from your environment that you trained on. So, for example, if you train your self-driving car on maybe highways, then you should test it on non-highways, and that will make sure that the data that you have given to an algorithm is generalizable across, right? If you do the same train and test, it might have just memorized things, right, and may not generalize well, and so you will get that indication in the test. So in the process I show you, it was like data, model, and then you test the model. So the testing process should be very rigorous.
Can you give us a into the future, next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, how AI, what our world will look like if AI goes the way you think it will? What do you see in the future, next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road?
I mean, I think it's actually going to be, the AI is penetrating most of our decision making, and it will continue to do so. The thing is, we are going to record everything because we are growing our capacity, to store data, to store and process information. So we'll kind of have a perfect meeting. So we are going to record our meeting. We'll be able to search what happened. So it's it will be a lot more of what we see happening, and our reliability on these technologies will grow. So if you think about IoT, right now, I don't know how many sensors I have in my home, and I'm pretty sure it was a lot less than 3 to 4 years back. And this is helping reach or at least get the information what I need, or I may need it in future. I will know that beforehand. So what I mean by that is, I mean, if I buy something, right, and then I realize that, there's some issue with this, I get a recall for that stuff beforehand because of all these automation going on. So, I mean, we are going to do this more and more. So we'll record everything. We are going to have a perfect memory of, what happened in the past, a perfect record of things. And things which has been done in a repeated way for which I have to try a lot will become a lot easier. So that is going to happen down the line, at least for the next 2 to 3 years. 10 years, I think, is very hard to predict.
How do you address the issue of hackers going in there and changing the direction of your vehicle that's already been pre-programmed?
That's what I said. The safety and trust in AI is something that, by the way, I mean, it's a very hard problem, but there are a lot of good solutions around it. It's not that computer scientists and security people are actually thinking about it, because there are I don't think the technology, like for example, the self-driving car is completely ready yet to be there on road because of these kind of issues. But I think there is a very active set of community who is trying to do that. And as I mentioned, until we rigorously stress test it, I don't think it will happen. We as a human will not let this happen. So, that is obviously a concern, but until we have passed that concern, this will not be something which will be ubiquitous.
What are your thoughts in terms of the AI is making more and more decisions for human beings? So in that time, we're making less and less decisions. So what's the balancing act for us when those systems fail and we don't have the decision-making capability? What's the alternative process as we evolve AI?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it becomes like we become the manager. So when you start making small decisions, then you rise over small decisions and become a manager, and then you are managing people who are making small decisions, and then you keep rising over in the hierarchy. I think we'll see a similar things. I'm going to manage a whole bunch of AI who will make small, like repetitive decisions, or decisions which I used to spend some time on it, and as the AI progresses, I will just keep rising in the hierarchy. Does that answer the question?
Mine was more for non-work related. It's for the general population that now has all these decisions being made for it. And if your alarm fails, or now you are driven everywhere by an AI Uber, and it fails, you don't know how to drive, you don't know how to dial 911, so that's kind of like.
I mean, I totally share that concern. So again, it's a concern of safety, and it's a concern of safety and trust. I think that's a very important question, and we won't see AI doing a very critical decision making before that is solved to a reasonable extent. But I'm also talking in a generic sense. In a generic sense, let's say I'm in my home and I spend a lot of time doing a lot of repetitive tasks, right? So it's like me being kind of a first-hand person doing all those. Then I become a manager of things that does those small things for me, and then now I can think big. I can think, okay, now I have enough time. What do I want, right? Human desires are endless. I'll always think of making it bigger and better, right? And then I'll do that, and maybe AI will start even making that decisions for me, and then I operate at another level. So it's exactly how a company start. When you are a sole person in a company, you do all the jobs yourself, and as you rise up, you start delegating your jobs. I think I can imagine a world where most of these jobs are delegated to the AIs, and we can think for what the next big thing is. I think this is an endless cycle. So okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a seat. We really appreciate learning about AI, automation. I can tell you, to bring it to a personal level, I know Southwest Airlines is using automation and AI as well. Yesterday, I flew back from the Northeast, and when I landed, I was waiting for my bags. I was waiting for my baggage, and while I was waiting for my bags, someone's calling me, sorry, I got an email from Southwest Airlines titled Baggage Incident Report. That was kind of weird. I haven't got my bags yet. Guess why? But actually, it was my wife's bag had been smashed to pieces, and so when it came out, they had already scanned it back, in the secure area, and I was already getting. By the time we walked 10 steps over to to the baggage thing, they already had a check for $129 written out to me. So lunch is on me today. Also, we took a flight that was delayed, I guess because of weather for some reason, out of Dallas. By the time we landed in Boston, we already had an email from Southwest Airlines saying, sorry about your late flight, here's a credit. So sometimes automation and AI really, really can come for helping solve problems, right? Anybody that works today, I'm looking in the room, anybody that owns a company today, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to solve our clients and our customers and their problems, right? That's how we make money, how we exist. The more we can solve those problems, the better and more successful we can be for sure. It all starts with that data though, right, Connie? You've got a ton of data at your company, how the process works, how to do things. And I want to tell you too that at the chamber has got a ton of data, right, Mark? You have got data out the wazoo, and it's available for our chamber members. So starting out, if you're in business and you're trying to solve problems, come and check out with the chamber some of the data that we have for you. We have got tons and tons of data to help your business become successful. And my thing is, how do we do things better, faster, cheaper, right? And my business, I'm in broadcasting and sports. We got to do things better, faster, cheaper. Quick story, just kidding. Well, I'll go with it anyway. You know, we used to rent these really big satellite trucks that had, have you seen these satellite trucks? These big trucks that pull up to the sports, have a big satellite dish on them. They weigh 30, 40, 50,000 pounds, right? We pay for them to come drive from Dallas or whatever. We have to pay for the satellite operator. We have to pay for every minute that we're up on that satellite out in space. Those satellite trucks have almost become totally obsolete today because the thing, I brought one. This is what we use now. This is what has replaced the satellite truck in our broadcasting industry. Isn't it amazing?
Does that mean I need to cancel the 18-wheeler I
Yes,
just
sir.
ordered you?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Danny. This is one company called LiveView, and every single news report that you see on the news today that is definitely out in the middle of nowhere is just using one of these things. They slap 5 or 6 cell cards into this, and they hit the start transmitting button, and that's it. You do not need a satellite truck anymore. Better, faster, cheaper, using technology. Ooh, it's our technology luncheon. Just wanted to show you all that. All right, let me wrap it up, and we'll get out of here. But before we do, I do want to introduce a couple of people that I see a lot of new faces here, okay? And we have some new staff members. Jenna, jump up here real quick. I'm going to bring up some of our new staff members so that everybody here gets to see the face and connect them with the name. This is not on the script, so Jenna's like, what? I don't remember this part. But Jenna, go ahead and let's introduce everybody.
Sure, we're really excited because we're fully staffed. So that's an exciting moment. And this week, for those of you that know Chris O'Dell, she just joined us back again this week after a year. So glad to have Chris. But we wanted to introduce some of our new employees at the chamber that you're going to be seeing around. And first, Demita Roberts, if you will stand and wave to everyone. Demita is our events coordinator. Today was her first luncheon to coordinate, so everybody's sitting next to Demita, we've got Carol Poston. Carol joined us and helped us out this summer while we were going through some transition and short staff issues, so she jumped right in. And we wanted to keep Carol because she's been a blessing to our organization and is so great to work with. She's going to be our sponsorship she is, not going to be, she is. Our sponsorship development director. So for those of you that knew, we used to do a total resource campaign where we would sell all of our sponsorships. We now have a staff person that's going to be handling that for us and maintaining that contact with our sponsors and managing their benefits. So we're really glad to have Carol that's joined our staff. Next to Carol, we've got Cindy Dixon. Cindy is the newest addition to our staff. Cindy, are you 2 weeks in? Is that right? 2 weeks in. Cindy is our communication coordinator, so she is going to be the one that's sending you all of your great information from our organization and updating it, whether it's social media, website, email, our press releases, our writing. She's got a pretty full load that she's going to be carrying, and we're really glad that we've got Cindy here with us today. We also have, she's new, but she doesn't seem so new because we've had so many new people that have joined us recently, but Jennifer Contave is here with us, and she's investor development, and she's been a great addition to our team, out there meeting with businesses and talking to them about how the chamber can help them grow as a business and provide those solutions. So we'd like to welcome Jennifer and say hello to all of them. All right.
Thank you. So, and just fun. If you work for the chamber at all, Mark, everybody else that we didn't mention, Katie, y'all stand up real quick. Shannon, where are you guys? Everybody that works at the chamber, just stand up. And let's thank them for all their hard work that they do. They hate it when I embarrass them. You may be seated, thank you. But I just did. Okay, thank you. All right, we want to thank our two sponsors big time again. Presenting sponsor, Divergent.